Hey, True Believers, England Teen here. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I followed the whole Punisher thing when it really was first started being a thing. And I figure, okay, we got to follow up, right? Because Garth Ennis did an interview. This is from Bounding in the Comics, by the way, with, I think it's a YouTube site called, what is this? It's YouTuber Comic Herald. And he brought up the Punisher. And it appears that he thinks this whole Punisher hate thing is as stupid as we do. And I thought, okay, let's talk about this. And I'll play this. I'll probably go over the article as well.
Okay, that's exciting. I mean, because again, I don't want to just like blow smoke up your butt here, but like your Punisher is beloved. I mean, I think Marvel fans, especially Punisher fans, they prefer that Max work to really anything that could be slotted like quote unquote in continuity, right? I mean, I think Punisher Max and
well, I'm not quite sure about that. I'm not quite sure if I value the Max stuff over. I do think that Garth Ennis, being who he is, I think Garth Ennis is a writer who kind of goes overboard so he can go overboard. No other real reason. It's just like, hey, you know, we're gonna do this. And The Boys is a great freaking example of that, where he starts off, he wants to do the whole, well, superheroes are real people and they'd be jerks and all that kind of stuff, but they go so extreme to the point where they're not real people anymore. And he kind of did that. Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of Mark Millar on the Ultimates. It was like, oh, we're going to do real people, and they just did assholes. Garth Ennis tends to do the same thing. I don't exactly mark it as the quintessential Punisher, but it was really good run.
In your Fury Max stuff, it really defines whatever the potential of a Marvel Max line was, you know, which is faded out of fashion, and it's, you know, it's not quite their Vertigo, but it is just like, you know, a pursuant of obviously more mature kind of like, but in your, you know, in your approach, like high quality work. And it's,
I don't think the Max ever reached well, maybe the worst of Vertigo. I mean, let's face it, if you're being honest, Vertigo wasn't a hit every time out. Garth Ennis hates superheroes, said that too. I know. And if Garth Ennis hadn't turned Punisher into a serial killer, and that's part of the problem. Once again, it's a problem with him. He goes to the extreme to the point where it's like none of your characters are really likable. Here we go. I'm going to continue here. Hello to Slithering Peanut, who gave that comment.
You could feel the hesitation in them, like teasing a resurrection of Max Comics. That's what Get Fury is. But it's like, it's not wholly committed to like, yeah, we're definitely bringing this back. You know, they kind of want to wait and see. Anyway, the question here is, you'd write him tomorrow. That's amazing. I feel like I know the answer, but how would you approach their squeamishness? How would you approach their political hesitation?
Here we go. And this is why I wanted to do this.
The first thing I would ask is, what sort of creative freedom are we talking about here? Because if it was to go ahead in neutered form, I just wouldn't be interested. At the same time, if people are so nervous about the skull symbol, I wouldn't care about that. I wouldn't mind jettisoning that. All that is, in storytelling terms, is it's a distraction. It's like Batman's bat signal.
I wouldn't jettison it because it is what we work. Yeah, I get what he's saying. You can write the Punisher and get Fury here. He just doesn't wear the symbol, and he's the Punisher. You understand that, and he is right about that. It is a distraction. It's a superhero thing, and as it was pointed out, Garth Ennis hates superheroes, so he could get rid of that and just write him as a character and probably be just as good. But I think they need to put that in there. And you're saying neuter, it's iconic, it's an idea. No, what he was saying was, if he's going to write the Punisher, he doesn't want to do it the neutered way. Like Marvel got so scared of the Punisher because certain cops would be wearing him on the shoulders or on their armor and such like that. And they would wear that. And of course, Black Lives Matter went, that's racist. And then Marvel, they cried off with it. They completely neutered the Punisher. My thinking has always been, you don't control how people react to what you do. And to destroy the character because they think that the cops are racist, which they aren't, Look it up. But it's hogwash. It's horseshit to neuter the Punisher because they agree with Black Lives Matter. Which, by the way, are we over that now?
Thing on his chest, it draws an opponent's eye and gun sight away from his head, because if he gets shot in the chest, of course, he's got Kevlar under there. There's also a bit of psychological warfare to it, but it's not important.
But I think that is why it is important. It is a psychological warfare. When you the scenes where you would have a dark room, and then you see it in the TV show actually, where he's walking forward, and the first thing you see is that skull. It is kind of like Batman stepping out of the shadows and that looming figure. I do think it's important.
If I could go ahead and write the Punisher the way I did for those 60 issues, I wouldn't care about skulls.
Yeah.
The real question would be, how nervous are they? Are they nervous? Having tested the waters with Get Fury, is there perhaps not such as big a fuss as they thought there might be? Do people have bigger fish to fry politically?
Well, and that's a big thing. It's Twitter. It's the internet. The internet forgets as quick as it remembers. This is something that why are you even letting the internet edit your comics? They're mad at something for 3 days and then they drop it. I was once canceled. It literally was like 3, maybe 4 days of shit, and then people found something different to do. Just fucking weather the storm and put out the goddamn Punisher the way the Punisher fans. And let's face it, the freaking twidiots that are out there complaining about the Punisher aren't Punisher fans. Don't write the fucking book for them. They're not going to buy the Punisher in any iteration. And that was proven by blonde-haired, neutered Punisher. Anyway, let me get back to it. Psych warfare is valid tactic. I agree.
Nowadays, which I think they do. Really, I mean, I regard the controversy over the Punisher and the symbol as a massive pointless distraction. It could be that Marvel are coming to the same understanding. I just don't know. But to answer your question, it would be it would depend hugely on what I was able to do.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
But it is something to hear a writer, especially Garth, like Garth Ennis, who was basically saying, look, the Punisher, he needs to be a violent character. He needs to be. You cannot do him half-assed. And when you're reading the Punisher, the best of the Punisher is where he is going whole hog after the bad guys. Hey, Dr. Admiral, what's up? Slithering is saying they're not letting the internet do anything. They're using the internet as an excuse for their terrible writing. Nah, sir, I disagree. No, I don't 100% disagree. I actually do believe they use the internet for their terrible writing, but I think that they believe that all those people complaining, and we talked about this last night, there is an audience for all that bullshit comics for some reason. But as far as characters like the Punisher, you can't write for them. They keep saying this. Well, these comics aren't for you. These comics aren't for you. You know what? The Punisher isn't for those blue-haired college girls who are always going to whine and cry and declare that you can't be free because they don't like your freedom. But yet they tend to go about it. I mean, did you see the end of the Punisher? Did you see how they brought back his dead wife, who then murders him, says that his entire life was sick and stupid, and then murders him?
And that's more or less what I expect your answer is. Like, well, you want to tell your stories, and I can't imagine you're the sort who would be especially bothered by how that gets misappropriated by readers, right? That feels like a larger, I don't know, it's like a very outside of story problem.
And he's right. And it's the same thing like when I'm doing a video, or I can't be responsible for someone taking my words out of context, or somebody, oh, well, you said blah, blah, blah. I just did or reposted a video about patriotic heroes. And this guy, he writes, well, I never liked the jingoistic blah, 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 yada, yada. I preferred the darker heroes, Punisher and such like that he was talking about. And I My response was, well, different strokes for different folks, as a very famous TV show once said. And he took that bad. He took that like I was insulting him. No, you know, you like what you like. I like what I like. I don't give a, you know, if you don't like the comics I like, it doesn't change my love for them. You know, I like stuff not a lot of people do. I like The Amazing Man or Plastic Man. I like some silly comics that people would never even pay attention to. I collect the black and white books over the Marvel epics. I just think they're cool, you know. I go into daily strips. You know, I just bought myself a beautiful Popeye daily book. It's about this big, and it's filled with Popeye comic strips from the 1940s. If you don't like that, I don't care. I'm still gonna love them, you know. And I don't know. That's not the way it comes from the other side. The Hatchet Men, Jason Aaron. Let's see. These comics aren't for anyone. Some of them. Comics are for men. Hanger 18. They're an offshoot of Pulp Mag. It is to a certain point. I mean, here's the thing. Comics are for anybody who can pay and wants to. That is flat out it. But comic books have traditionally been consumed by guys. That's not to say they never were. Like Maranya is on the channel a lot, and she, or at least in the chat, and she's been collecting comics for as long as I have. You know, there's always been women in comics. Fucking hell, one of my comic book heroes is Jeanette Kahn, who saved DC Comics in the 1970s. But they have been written. They knew who their audience was. In this case, they decided to trade their audience, but they forgot that you want to keep the audience you have while you're chasing the new audience. Now, I think the Max comics would be a good way to go about it. They've been sneakily putting in good stuff. It would be like a continuation of the Wolverine series from 90s, or a continuation of the X-Men from 97, and so forth and so on. Put that in the Max umbrella, let it go. We know, and it will actually have a brand where comic book collectors like ourselves know where to go, know what to do. And then we can avoid all the bullshit titles. Yeah, I would love for DC to do that as well. I got to point to that Fire and Ice thing where they did a series where Martha Kent went to a drag show brunch. What in her 80-year history says that Martha Kent would ever go to a drag show? Brunch, okay, I can see, but a drag show, no.
I think so. I think it's one of those things that people like to focus on when they're trying to figure out if they can make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
They look at fiction and comics in particular. Very easy target, very easy to scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
It's far easier to say, well, let's get rid of the skull symbol and let's get rid of the Punisher, than it is to say, let's upend society so that black people are no longer actually in police gun sites due to their economic circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the economic circumstances. I grew up poor. I've never had a gun pointed at me because I never stole. I never attacked people. I knew white guys who did. By the way, I have a cousin who actually got a freaking back full of shotgun blast because he decided to be a dumbass. He was huge, so it didn't put him down permanently, but it put him down. With Yui, my wife got me the collected Spider-Man newspaper strips. They're just too freaking cool. I love that kind of stuff. My newspaper strip goal is they've got like a 20 volume Peanuts. Yeah, absolutely. Make a difference via the most convoluted epic scale of storytelling is called virtue signal, says Universe Man. Yeah.
Let's spend the money and change attitudes and improve police training. No one is going to do that in a million years. Or and this is I'm just going, or you condemn the culture of violence. You condemn it. What is that? There was an 11-year-old kid rapping about I'm gonna this pussy and I'm gonna get my gun, and it's come on, seriously. And no, it's yeah. Look, I'm not saying there aren't any bad cops out there. There most definitely are, but come on. but let's attack comics. Let's blame fiction.
It's Frederick Wortham all over again, except for this time Frederick Wortham, instead of being a psychologist who looked at Batman and Robin and went, you know, those two are f***ing right? And everybody went, oh my gosh, instead of looking at Frederick Wortham and go, what kind of pedo motherfucker are you? And they started believing that guy, right? But it's all over, except for now, instead of a psychologist, it's a lot of blue hairs.
That's so easy to do.
You remember when blue hairs used to mean old people?
After all, no one ever really sticks up for comics in a serious way. So it's...
When you say no one, do you mean like myself, like Gary and the Black Pills? And look, I think Gary and the Black Pills, once again, great 1950s band name. I think Gary and the Black Pills go overboard a lot as well. But they're pointing it out too, kids. So Garth, no, you're just late to the party, man.
To me, it's quite silly, really. It's making excuses. It's blaming a comic book and a comic book character for much bigger problems. In fact, problems that are so much bigger that they utterly dwarf what we're talking about here with a comic book character, with any kind of fictional portrayal.
Yeah. And I've always been kind of confused, honestly, because it's, you know, part of the controversy seems to be like police forces like wielding the Punisher symbol as like, you know, kind of this I don't know, like mascot of brutality,
which goes way overboard, seriously. And once again, even if it was, it wouldn't change. If you write the Punisher right, it won't change. So you do have to neuter him. You do have to make him blonde hair, pansy-ish compared to Frank Castle. Just absolutely not who the Punisher is. Because it doesn't matter the symbol. They did that stupid dragon thing. And if the Punisher is written like the Punisher, then that stupid dragon thing becomes the symbol for the violence. It's not the symbol. It's what it stands for. Oh, you think. All right. No, I didn't know about the Peanuts. I want the collected Calvin and Hobbes, but it's expensive, so it's a used copy. If I can, yeah, that one's actually pretty good too. I grew up, actually, I didn't grow up. I was in my 20s when Calvin and Hobbes, so I bought all the books as they came along. Yeah, but pretty cool. Anywho, I'm having two different conversations.
And obviously
the suggestion that any police officer wants to be the Punisher is silly. Again,
stupid, yes, Garth.
What they want to do at the most is to wear a scary T-shirt while they shove black people around, or worse.
Yeah.
They do. And then go home to the wife and kids. They don't want.
So does this mean if, like, okay, say a cop, he's like SWAT or whatever it is. We used to, in Orlando, we called them the Duke Boys, and this was the gangbusters, right? And they had their armor, looked like freaking colonial Marines and aliens that had the stuff all over, you know. Say one of them had a daughter who liked Holly Hobby. And to remind him of his kid, he put Holly Hobby on his shoulder, gets into a fight with a gang member, ends up killing him. Does Holly Hobby now become a symbol of violence? Do any of you actually know who the Holly Hobby is, or am I just referencing something way too old?
Want to be a Punisher type of character. They don't want to lose their family in some ghastly massacre and then devote their lives to a one-man war on crime. Again, let's blame the comic. Let's blame fiction for a problem that actually it has very little bearing on, and that its removal will make no difference to whatsoever.
Right. The problem exists and has.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. I'm sorry, it is, and it's not just a black thing. You do see a lot of, and anytime the news is on, oh, a store gets robbed. Of course, it seems like all the people running in do have a year-long tan, but I've seen it with my own eyes. Like I said, I grew up poor. I know there was some dumb motherfuckers who thought because they were poor, they were what is the word when you're entitled to other people's things, and any one of those would have deserved to basically suck the pipe if they walked into somebody's house and the person shot at them. You know, it's just the way it is. No racism there. It's just that if you break into somebody's house, if you break into somebody's car, especially when they're there, you deserve what you get. If you're attempting violence, if you're even just to rob somebody, you deserve what you get.
Existed for a long time and will continue to, regardless of Punisher comics. I think with that I would agree. Now, I mean, you definitely in your works have not shied away from this topic, both in I mean, I think folks who've read your Punisher are like, you know, and kind of understand that it's like it is critical of policing, and also Frank Castle in so many ways, right? Like, this is not a figure. It's interesting to me, like, this is not a figure to be this is not a heroic figure in any way. I guess, is that part of, like, when you're like, I would write
I 100% agree. He is not supposed to be a hero. Not definitely not in the way of normal superheroes. As a matter of fact, I always kind of I like them, and I read them, but I always think, why are you teaming up with the Punisher and not putting him down? The Punisher should always be outside the law, and if he is seen by other superheroes, he should be captured by other superheroes, because he kills. And yeah, as much as if you're attacking somebody, you deserve, but he hunts them down and without trial kills them. So if he does get arrested, or if he's in the side of a superhero, the superhero being who they are, who they are, they should actually put him down.
that character tomorrow. Is that part of the appeal to you, that like this is like this person is so messed up? Like, is that why he's so interesting to you?
Why writing the book is interesting to me is that it's a way to examine manifestations of violence in the real world. I originally stopped writing the Marvel Knights Punisher and went over to the Max Punisher because 9/11 happened, and I wanted to talk about a world in which things like that could happen, not the specifics of the day, the incident, but in a wider sense, why the world is the way it is, why there is violence in it, why.
Okay, this is a big thing for him to tackle. I'll get to your comment in just a little bit. Oh, by the way, you don't need to super chat to have your comics read, but I don't mind either. Okay, so what he's saying there is something I think a lot of writers, whether they're on the right or the left, and I know I just said right or left, but mainly towards left, what they say is that, well, we need to find out the reasons why, blah, blah, blah. And what it ends up being is, these are the reasons I see as to why the violence is there. And generally the left, like the right, tend to blame the ethereal. I know that's not the right word. Excuse me for my head. But they tend to blame the untouchable stuff. And then the left blame you. You know, like, and that I think is weird, because they seem to always be going for the untouchable, the utopia, and not reality. But anyway.
People keep making the same mistakes over and over, why these things become self-fulfilling prophecies. That's something I find absolutely fascinating about it. And as for the character himself, certainly no, not a hero, not someone to be emulated. I think of him more as a force of nature, as a thing that happens. He's not a guy who stands around and poses and postures and roars and waves guns the way the old Punisher used to. You know what I've just described. I'm sure you, in your head, you can see half a dozen old Punisher covers.
Oh yeah.
He's, as I say, a force of nature. He's a thing that happens when the pressure builds up.
He's a guy who snapped. I don't know if I would put him as a force of nature. He's a guy who snapped. But because he snapped, I can see why. I mean, I guess the definition would be that he's so singularly visioned. It's almost like, because his family died, he's prepared to die. But before he's taken out, he's going to bring out every criminal mother who decided to get in his way just by being criminal mother. So, yeah. Let's see. K Trash is saying, "Hey Garth, my boy, I'm a huge fan. Been a huge fan. Welcome back, Frank. I wish I could have an autograph over the internet, but when can you? Wait a second, no, dude. I'm watching another person's. I appreciate it, but I'm watching another person's and kind of reacting to it. This guy is called something or other. It was a good one. Oh, Comic Book Herald. Okay. Let's see. Dark Admiral got the Holly Hobby reference. Let's see. I mean, Mr. Ennis times 3 part of my enthusiasm. I'm honestly starstruck. Slithering is saying Garth Ennis is a good writer. I just wish he didn't have an idiotic idea that superheroes aren't true heroes. It's kind of like J. Jonah Jameson. I mean, that is the whole. That's the whole motivation for J. Jonah Jameson going after Spider-Man. That the costumed heroes take away from the actual heroes. Do you have any idea how many officers would like others to take fire for them? I don't have a number right off. He's right. Just look at all the drooling masses too wrapped up in their next big MCU movie is coming out to notice the real problems in the real world, the ones no Superman is ever able to fix. But that's actually a reason why they don't have them do it. If you look at the powers in the world of superheroes, the world should have no problem. I mean, you literally have people who can grow plants anywhere. So why are there deserts? You know, you have, you definitely have someone who could deliver food to those who live in those deserts without fear that any warlord is going to steal it from them. You know, that is a thing. So you do have a problem with that, and that's why they never try to tackle it. I think, like in the World War II, one of the reasons why the superheroes, a lot of them didn't go to war, is because they didn't want to dilute the or diminish what the soldiers were actually going through and doing. It doesn't matter because Frank is Frank, and unless you change Frank's existence, then nothing changes. That's true. Force of nature, I can see it. He's an outside force, an opposing opposite reaction. All right. Oh, my bad. I thought this was a live interview with Mr. No worries, man. I appreciate you being here. Would you say Punisher and Red Hood are similar or a bit different with their... the Punisher would kill the Red Hood, I think. Now, but maybe not, because the Red Hood, when he did his beheadings, by the way, Batman should have beaten Red Hood into Arkham. There's no Jason Todd walking around free after he beheaded all those mobsters. Not happening, bro. But yeah, I think they're very similar. I think they are very similar.
He's like, think of him as an earthquake or a volcano or a tropical storm. Things get bad. They get worse. The pressure builds. And then one day you look out the window and there's that silhouette on the horizon and you know that things will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not an answer to problems either. One of my favorite Punisher stories I wrote was The Slavers, which was about human trafficking. It's made very clear in that whatever Frank can do locally, that whatever he can do to solve the immediate problem, he's not going to change the economic circumstances of the people who end up being trafficked or the traffickers themselves.
And of course, that's one of the things that comic books are good for. It is kind of reminding people that, hey, this is out there. You know, this is what's going. This happened at our border, for fuck's sake. I just made it political. What you gonna do? But he's right. You know, if you are dealing with a guy like the Punisher, he can only affect the people that he's in front of, and hopefully scare others out of doing it. And I do appreciate, you know, the 1980s kind of hero. And by the way, the Punisher was a reaction to 1970s crime violence in New York. It was out of hand. It's like kind of like now. I've been saying for a while, we need a Punisher in New York because we need Serpico. You know, it's that kind of thing. I think actually he went after Dirty Cops. But we do. We need some good old-fashioned Republican Punisher style justice. Think about the 70s. It's why Bronson was big. Exactly. Yeah. The Death Wish thing. You remember that Bruce Willis remade, was it Bruce Willis? Yeah, remade Death Wish a few years back. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is the wrong time. It was exactly the right time. Let's see. I mean, they used to, back when Marvel had the Max line and used it to address the really messed up stuff in the world. Now it treats its audience like children, even when they aren't children. It's what's there, man. It's what's there. Yep. All right, let's continue this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very violent, short-term attempt at a solve, or retribution, really. But to your point, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not a solution.
It's fighting criminals. It's not fighting crime. Ooh, let that one sit for a while.
Right.
In the original run, I think it was the last issue, I tried to boil it down to a couple of sentences, which is a habit I have, where someone asks Frank, okay, why? Just tell me why. You've got no reason not to. You've no reason to talk to me. But on the other hand, you've got no reason not to talk to me. So just tell me. And Frank, the ice cracks for him for a second. And Frank says, so they can't walk away.
Yeah.
So they can't profit from the pain they've caused. Because it occurred to me that, of course, is what happened to him. His family was wiped out, and almost by accident, and the people who did it carried on. They carried on as if nothing had happened. They carried on doing business. They carried on making money. They profited. They carried on profiting from other people's pain, and because that happened to him, he can't stand that. He can't stand that people like that are alive.
Okay, I all of a sudden want Garth Ennis to be the Punisher writer for life. He gets them, man. Seriously. It's not just a hatred for crime. It's not a hatred for criminals. It's that he's the Batman who kills. In all honesty, he is. He's got his gadgets, but his gadgets are guns. He's the one that goes overboard and kills. He's the Batman that what's his name? The dude with the sunglasses. You can see his scripts, and he yells a lot and tries to iterate. What the f is his name again? Freaking hell. Okay, guys, he tries to sound like freaking Rocky, the Macho Man. What the freaking hell? Not Rocky the Macho. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Freaking Razor Fist. Razor Fist. Yeah, he did a video about Batman killing. This is who you get. You get the Punisher. They're two different characters. The Batman killing thing is not a stupid rule. It's a different character. Anyway.
And that's what I mean by a force of nature. He's just an answer to people like that, not to the problems, but he'll come along, not to the essential nature of those problems and the inequalities in society. He's a short-term fix, but he's nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this is something that Ennis could probably do very well. And if you think about the fact that if he makes the Punisher's stories personal, it doesn't become about the problems of the world. It becomes about the inner turmoil and such. I gotta be honest. I have not read the Max Punisher except for the first 4 or 5 issues. Now I am jazzed. I want to pick this shit up. Let's see. Ennis Punisher versus Millar Wolverine. Well, they made Wolverine into a god. It used to. I think that the first time I saw it, it was Civil War, where he regenerated from a drop of blood. Really. Back in the day, if you slit his throat or if you cut an artery that bled out too quick, he would be dead because he couldn't heal fast enough. Now they have him healing from dust. Let's see. I'm not even the biggest Punisher fan, but the war against the Punisher skull is avarice. People have been commandeering emblems and causes for time infinitum. Let's see. Perhaps Rorschach is similar to the Punisher in some ways. What he did to that pedophile. Yeah. And the question.
Yeah, I think that feels right. And it's also, I mean, I think that's part of what I like about the Fury works too, is the people profiting off of pain. That really hones in on the bureaucracy of it, right? And how there is, it's the insidious nature of the CIA and these campaigns that are profiting off of pain. I feel like Fury really digs into that, and I had not made that connection before, that's also the Punisher's deal, just at a local level, right? So
I mean,
I'm not quite sure where the CIA comes into it. Okay.
Opposing the communist threat during the Cold War is in and of itself not a bad idea. The trouble is that the communist threat isn't anywhere near as dangerous or as capable as people think, and so therefore the answer to it, the CIA's answer to it, the opposition to it, becomes a kind of an industry of profit itself. And of course, if you're going to oppose communism, you have to prop up certain other regimes, and those other regimes are.
Well, I've said this about many things, and you obviously, guys, you know where the comment section is and such if you disagree with me or anything, but I've always believed that an organization, look at Comicsgate. When we started Comicsgate, it was Reader Revolt. And for a while, we were doing well. People were listening. The writers, artists, they were actually listening. You did have on the other side, you had people who were fighting back, but when it got taken and the ball dropped, it came back into, it just came back bigger and worse than ever. But it goes to show, because what Comicsgate became was exactly what we were arguing against. And I've always believed that any group, as soon as they accomplish their goal, they end up becoming a twisted version of it, and sometimes exactly the opposite of it.
Are not necessarily very nice.
Mm-hmm.
You're not providing an alternative to the communist threat as embodied by Soviet Russia. You're just keeping it at bay. You're not really answering the problems that it comes along to solve.
Well, one of the reasons why is because if they solve all the problems, then what's their point? Right now, and this popped right into my head as soon as I started saying this, right now there is a group of people. They work the DEI at Disney. You know, they're the ones that pointed out that Splash Mountain, for being an awesome ride, oh, it's problematic because they've never seen the movie. They have no fucking clue what was in the movie, but they said the movie was racist. The only people who had their shit together were the black people. And one scene in particular, you have a whole bunch of black people, and they're having a barbecue, and they're singing, and they're having a good time. And this pisses off the blue hair left. This pisses off the DEI people because it doesn't take it seriously. It doesn't take slavery seriously. One, it's not slavery. It's after slavery. These were family members who were slaves and are now together and free. It's not as free as they would be, but it is freer than they were. So why can't they be happy for a moment? So they change Splash Mountain, and now they've got another. They have to justify their existence. So they actually said that Tinkerbell was problematic because she's body conscious, and now they can't have Tinkerbell meet and greets. And that's what happens with places like things like the CIA. They have to keep getting their money. They have to keep justifying their existence. So they cannot eliminate the threat. They just got to learn to live with a threat.
Yeah. It's interesting. When did you kind of settle? Because the one connection from Fury to Get Fury is our narrator, right? It's this Vietnamese character who has been there throughout. When did you kind of align on like, oh, that's the, or like, I guess, how did you get to the point where you're like, that's the perspective that we need here? Is this individual? Because I feel like in so much of how Vietnam is presented to Americans, and having grown up in the school systems, that is not a perspective we get ever.
I don't know. If you're a Zoomer, I don't think Zoomers watch this program, but if you're a Zoomer, do you understand Vietnam? I mean, my dad was in Vietnam. I'm 53. He's at this point, what, 75 now? So I understand, and I think the generation right behind me did. I guess they would be the millennials to a certain extent. But after a while, you get so separated from it. Do you guys actually understand Vietnam, or at least Vietnam as it affected the people who came home from it? Did you ever talk to your grandparents and learn this?
And until you're an adult and you look into it, right? What was that process for you?
Well, that all began with the first story arc in My War Gone By, where Fury is fighting alongside the French in what they call Indochina, which was part of their empire, French Indochina. And I decided that it was appropriate to have a Vietnamese character who opposed the American-backed French effort there, the anti-colonial effort. I beg your pardon, sorry. The American-backed French colonial effort should be opposed by an anti-colonial effort and an anti-colonial voice. And I chose, I'm not, after all this time, I'm still not sure if I'm going to pronounce his name right, but I chose Lê Trong Giap because I wanted a smart guy, an insightful guy who, to an American or to a Westerner, might look like any other Vietnamese peasant, but who was very much not.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted a character like that to whom I could give the line, this is not French Indochina, it is not French anything, it is Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I wanted that perspective in there at the very beginning of my War Gone By, to sort of say to people, look, this Western imperial effort it's built on a foundation of dust.
He's not wrong. He is not wrong. I remember when Desert Storm popped up, I was going to enlist. My cousin was going to enlist. I was going to enlist. And my dad sat me down and he says, you need to know what you're fighting for. You need to know you want to do it. Yeah, because it wasn't like him. He was drafted in the Army. But of course, I'm very much a Reagan Republican at the time. And, the country's going to war, we got to go. And my cousin, he did. He ended up enlisting in the Army. My dad sat me down and had me read everything. He did the same thing, by the way, with religion. He told me, if you're going to believe in God, read the Bible. Read the Bible all the way through, and he read the Torah. I never read until I was an adult. I never read what you call it, Islam. That book. Anyway, but he sat me down and he talked about how about Vietnam and what they were told versus what was real. The fact that they were drafted, and I always thought it was kind of silly. If you pay attention to what happened with the French, America was like, wow, that was stupid, let's do it. It's like it was just stupidity in their own way. That's not to say that had we actually committed, we would have won. There is, I believe it was Nixon said, the biggest threat to the American campaign was shit. I'm sorry, my memory, for words is leaving. The opposition to the American campaign was its worst enemy, is basically what he was saying. And because that held people back, because wars are sometimes fought by politicians, and they were not able to fight as well as the American army would have been able to fight. My dad hates hearing that the Americans lost. He guess we were never allowed to fight. That's so I've always carried that with me forever and ever. Not to say that they weren't in battles. Obviously there were. It's just that they weren't allowed to really go whole hog the way America could.
And it's going to cause serious problems because the locals have a point of view and they're going to get a say. And that is really where Giap began. And he was a character because he has a pretty decent sense of humor, quite a wicked sense of humor.
Yeah.
I found myself wanting to write him more and more. And that's why you see him later in the arc of My War Gone By, where Frank joins Fury. You see him at the very end at the Vietnam Memorial, because I wanted to get across the idea that for a guy like that, the war would be over and there would be, in a weird way, no hard feelings, whereas of course Fury can't let go of any of his wars at all.
Mm-hmm.
I brought Giap back in the platoon, and now of course he's back in Get Fury too.
Okay, so I'm actually going to stop it here. I read the first issue of Fury. I loved it, and I haven't read the rest of it. So I think I'm getting into spoiler territory. And for those of you who've been around long enough, I freaking hate spoilers. I know it's become a thing now. People don't mind the spoilers and all that kind of stuff. I'm not one of them. But there you go. It's good to see somebody who wants to embrace the Punisher the way it's supposed to be, and not this mamby-pamby, oh my gosh, those guys we don't like over there have taken it over and it's not our character anymore. Dan Alvin saying the book is heavy, the ending of issue #1. Whoa. Yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing it. I just haven't yet. You know, it was very good. It reminded me, you know, the Punisher's back, man. The Punisher's back. So that was, I'm getting new glasses. So that was that, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see. Usually we do a cover ranking, but they were doing their reading. It went overboard, and I was bored, so I decided to do this one. I also want to talk about Neil Adams. A couple of things I've got coming up because I saw something pop up in my YouTube, and I was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, that's right. And just, I don't know. I'll start doing these kind of videos more often as well. So please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, select all, so you get everything, cool things happen around these parts. As always, don't forget to go on over to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the tip jar, and I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that. To everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching, and you guys have a good night.